Her eye had swollen to the size of a ping-pong ball, bright red, burning, fluid leaking from the corner. She had gone to the doctor multiple times, but no one could find the cause, until finally, one doctor was stunned by a discovery no one could have imagined. What he saw under the microscope will make your skin crawl. Stay with us to uncover the chilling truth behind her nightmare. Samantha Grady walked into the office that Thursday morning like she did every other day. Head held high, heels steady, lashes immaculate. The sunlight from the large windows of the open-plan floor caught the curve of her cheekbone just right, casting a soft shadow that made her look 10 years younger. Even Jill from HR, who barely nodded at anyone, paused mid-sip of her green smoothie and said, "Damn, Sam, you're glowing." Sam smiled. It wasn't a big smile, just enough to acknowledge the compliment without seeming like she needed it. She didn't. She'd learned long ago that the key to looking pulled together wasn't about lipstick or hair. It was lashes, always the lashes. A good set of lashes could hide tired eyes, smooth over bad sleep, even make you look like you had your life together when your apartment was a war zone and your fridge only had expired yogurt. "Just got them done yesterday," she said, brushing her finger lightly over her eyelid, careful not to smudge anything. The lashes were thick, curled at just the right angle, long enough to be dramatic but not enough to scream desperate. They fluttered when she blinked. Calculated elegance. She sat down at her desk, opened her laptop, and got to work like she always did. Efficient, minimal conversation, plenty of eye contact during meetings. People trusted Sam because she looked sharp, the kind of sharp that came from detail, perfect nails, neat eyeliner, and those lashes that looked expensive, even though they weren't. The spa she went to wasn't exactly high-end. It was tucked between a payday loan storefront and a vape shop in a strip mall on the edge of Tulsa. The front desk smelled faintly of acetone, and there was always someone FaceTiming loudly in Vietnamese in the back. But Sam didn't mind. It was close to home and didn't require her to shower or get dressed up before heading over. They took walk-ins. They didn't ask questions. They just glued on the lashes, charged her $35, and handed her a paper punch card with a smudged cartoon of a lady's face. Why 5:17 p.m. Sam had shut down her laptop and was out the door. She wasn't in the mood to chat with coworkers about weekend plans or that new Thai place on 11th. She hated small talk, hated feeling like she had to explain why she liked to go straight home and disappear. The truth was, home wasn't a retreat. It was just where she could let go. ER apartment complex was older, mid-70s brick and beige siding, with creaky stairwells and chipped paint around the edges of every unit door. The hallway lights flickered as she passed, her heels clicking over the dirty linoleum. She unlocked her door with one practiced motion, nudged it open with her shoulder, and stepped inside. The air was stale, with a hint of something sweet that had long since turned sour. Maybe an old banana peel. Maybe last week's takeout. She didn't stop to find out. She dropped her purse on the couch. Well, on the pile of unfolded laundry that had become the couch, and kicked off her shoes, one landing near the TV stand, the other under the coffee table, next to an empty ramen bowl. She walked past the kitchen. The sink was full again. She thought about rinsing a fork, then thought better of it. There was still a cleanish spoon in the drawer, probably. The fridge buzzed loudly, its motor protesting years of abuse. Inside it, takeout containers with faded Sharpie dates crowded next to a half-used bottle of coffee creamer. She didn't check the expiration date. Instead, she went straight to her room and peeled off her work pants. Her blouse stayed on. She collapsed onto the bed, face up, lashes perfectly intact. The pillowcase under her head was stiff from old mascara, little black flecks where her eyes usually landed. She didn't notice. Or if she did, she didn't care. Her eyes scanned the ceiling. A single cobweb fluttered above the ceiling fan. She pulled out her phone, opened Instagram. Scroll, like scroll, skip ad. Beauty influencers with flawless skin promoted the latest lash serums that actually work. She rolled her eyes. That wasn't real beauty. Real beauty was this, coming home exhausted, not bothering to take off your makeup, and still looking decent in the morning. But even as she thought that, she reached up and scratched lightly at the edge of her left eyelid. Just a little itch. Nothing major, probably from the glue, or maybe allergies. The trees were blooming early this year. She didn't think about the pillowcase she hadn't washed in 3 weeks. Or the fact that she hadn't once cleaned her lash line, not even with a cotton swab. She didn't remember when she last changed her bedsheets either. It wasn't laziness, she told herself, It was practicality. She had more important things to do. She was working, she was keeping up appearances, she wasn't bothering anyone. Who cared if her room looked like a crime scene, or if her skincare routine was a baby wipe and a hope? Outside, a dog barked. A neighbor slammed their car door. Sam blinked slowly, staring at the cobweb again. The lashes held. That's what mattered. When Sam was a child, she never made her bed. Not once. Not when her mom asked. Not even when it was chore chart day and her name was in big purple letters next to bedroom. Make IT look nice. Her mother, Linda, always ended up doing it. At first with cheerful sighs, then with silent frustration. By the time Sam was in high school, Linda had given up pretending it would change. She's just not the neat type, Linda would say to friends at church, half laughing, half apologizing. She's creative. Her mind's too busy for details. Sam never thought of herself as creative. She wasn't writing poetry or painting murals. She just didn't care about tidiness. Clutter didn't bother her. Dishes in the sink meant you'd eaten something. Clothes on the floor meant you'd worn something. A bed left unmade, you were just going to get back into it anyway. What was the point? But the older she got, the more the clutter followed her like a second skin. Into her dorm room. Into her first apartment. Into her car, where coffee cups rolled under seats and lip balm tubes melted into the console. She'd never really learned how to care for a space because someone else had always done it. And when she lived alone, there was no someone else anymore. Her mom still tried. Even now, at 65, Linda would call at least once a week, always with that same tone. Half worried, half accusing. Did you change your sheets yet, Sam? I will. When? Soon. You know how important it is. Dust mites, bacteria. Moom. I'm just saying, you deserve to sleep somewhere clean. Sam would always roll her eyes, glance around her bedroom at the piles of clothes, and think, what's the big deal? It's not like anyone else is sleeping here. Her father, Gerald, never said much. A retired engineer, he was the kind of man who kept his garage cleaner than most people's kitchens. He'd built Sam her first bookshelf when she was 10 and almost cried when she painted it with glitter nail polish. He'd stopped asking about her apartment years ago. Sam knew they were disappointed, in that quiet, suffocating parental way. Not angry, not dramatic. Just tired. Tired of hoping she'd grow out of it. Tired of finding balled-up tissues in the cushions when they visited. Tired of pretending that her eyeliner-smudged pillowcases were charming signs of independence. She didn't blame them, but she didn't change either. That night, after scrolling social media until her thumb cramped, Sam tossed the phone onto the nightstand and turned off the light. Her lashes still intact, her makeup half there, her head pressed into the same unwashed pillowcase. Something itched again. Not badly, not painfully, just that little tickle at the edge of her eyelid that made her rub the corner with the back of her hand. She groaned softly. Maybe she should have asked the lash lady what kind of glue she used this time. It didn't feel like usual. Or maybe it was allergies. The oak pollen had been brutal this year. She'd heard someone say Tulsa was ranked one of the worst cities in the country for spring allergies. That made sense. Everyone's eyes were itchy in April. It wasn't a big deal. Still, her fingers hovered over her lashes again. That edge, that weird, persistent tingle. Not pain, not yet. Just a whisper, a warning her body seemed to be sending that her brain didn't want to hear. She pushed the thought away. Just needed sleep. In the morning, she'd wake up, splash her face with water, do a light concealer pass, maybe recurl the lashes. She'd still look like she had her life together. She always did. She closed her eyes. The cobweb on the ceiling fluttered again. And somewhere, beneath the surface of her carefully kept illusion, something was beginning to stir. Saturday mornings were for errands. At least that's what Sam always told herself. She even had a sticky note on her fridge that said "Sat equal to self-care," written in blue Sharpie and curling at the edges from months of neglect. It was stuck beside a pizza coupon that expired last summer and a grocery list she'd never taken to the store. She didn't mind her weekends being a little chaotic. It made her feel alive in a low-maintenance, I-do-it-my-way sort of way. But this Saturday was different. She had exactly one mission: fill her lashes. She could skip laundry, skip grocery shopping, even skip washing her hair again. But the lashes? Non-negotiable. The place she went to wasn't exactly a spa. It was called Lush Lashes and Nails, a shop wedged between a pawn shop and a vape store on the edge of town. The neon sign flickered during the day and buzzed audibly at night. Inside, it smelled faintly of nail polish remover and jasmine air freshener. The walls were painted a pale pink that had faded into something closer to Band-Aid beige. Sam liked that they didn't ask too many questions. No judgment, no pressure. Walk in, sign your name, lie down, lashes on. No small talk required. Tina, the lash tech she preferred, was always chewing gum and scrolling TikTok in between clients. Her hands were fast and precise, even if she never seemed to clean her tweezers between appointments. Oh day, Sam didn't even bother to put on real clothes. Just sweatpants, flip-flops, and yesterday's mascara, still clinging to her lashes in little dried clumps. She hadn't showered either. She figured she'd just do it after the appointment, once the glue was set. Besides, no one there cared. When she walked in, Tina barely looked up. You want full set or refill? Refill. It's only been 2 weeks. Tina nodded and gestured toward the back, where a row of low recliners lined the wall. Sam took her usual spot, the second one, near the fake potted plant that always had a layer of dust on its leaves. She leaned back into the worn leather, feeling the seat stick slightly to the back of her legs. There was an old makeup stain on the headrest. She saw it every time. She didn't care. She figured it was hers. Tina snapped on a pair of gloves but didn't change her mask. Sam tilted her chin up and closed her eyes, letting herself drift into that half-sleep that came easily when someone was fussing over your face. As the technician began the delicate dance of removing outgrown lashes and gluing new ones into place, Sam's thoughts wandered. She should probably wash her pillowcase. It had started to smell like her eyeliner pencil, slightly waxy, vaguely chemical. But that would mean doing laundry, and her last clean towel was still drying on the doorknob from Tuesday. Besides, she'd survived worse. She scratched lightly at the corner of her eye. Don't move, Tina said flatly. Sam stilled, blinking once, then relaxing again. She hated how some people made such a big deal about beauty treatments. Women who made appointments weeks in advance, showed up with spreadsheets of their skincare routines, or asked about glue ingredients like they were reviewing a scientific study. Sam thought it was all just too much. Beauty was supposed to be effortless, or at least feel like it. When Tina was done, Sam sat up slowly, blinking against the shop's fluorescent lights. She turned toward the little hand mirror on the tray beside her and smiled. The lashes were perfect, long, dark, soft at the ends. They lifted her whole face, made her eyes look bigger, less tired. She felt fresh again, like someone who had it all together. She paid in cash and left without saying much, the door jingling shut behind her. Back in her car, she looked at herself in the rearview mirror. Flawless. Then she sneezed. A tickle in her left eye lingered. She rubbed at it with the knuckle of her index finger. Just allergies, she told herself. That evening, Sam was sitting cross-legged on her bed with a carton of takeout lo mein, scrolling through dating apps half-heartedly. The lashes were working. Every third guy had swiped right, and her inbox had 3 new "Hey Beautiful" messages. She didn't answer any of them. Not yet. Just seeing the matches was enough to give her that small dopamine kick, a tiny reminder that appearance still mattered more than, well, anything else. Her phone buzzed again, this time not from the apps. It was her mom, calling. She stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the red decline button. Then, with a sigh, she answered, Hey Mom. Hi sweetheart, just wanted to check in. How are your eyes doing? You said they were itchy last week. Sam rolled her eyes instinctively. It's nothing, just allergies. You know how it is. Are you sure? You've always had sensitive eyes. Maybe it's that glue again? You know I read an article about eyelash extensions. Some of those places don't disinfect properly. Did they use a fresh pillow under your head? Sam muted the speaker for a second and shoved a mouthful of noodles into her mouth. Mom, I'm fine. Seriously. I'm just saying. You should be careful. Those lash places aren't always as clean as they look. You know you can get mites, like actual little bugs, that live in your lashes? Sam laughed. Okay, gross. You read too many Facebook articles. I'm serious, Sam. I just worry about you. You're so beautiful, but sometimes I think you don't. Okay, I gotta go. My food's getting cold. Linda hesitated. All right. Love you. Sam hung up without saying it back. She tossed the phone beside her and leaned back against the headboard. Her lashes brushed against the pillowcase, soft and dramatic. She blinked a few times. There it was again. That strange itch, not painful, just annoying, lingering, like a hair trapped beneath the lid, only there was nothing there. She rubbed gently at the corner of her left eye with the pad of her finger, careful not to tug the lashes. She didn't want to lose any. Tina had made them look so full. She stared at the ceiling, the faint outline of the cobweb still fluttering in the breeze from the cracked window. She hadn't cleaned it. She'd noticed it weeks ago, but it hadn't bothered her enough to do anything about it. Besides, who was looking? Her mom's voice echoed in her head. You deserve to sleep somewhere clean. She pushed the thought away. Sam reached for her compact mirror, opened it, and stared at her lashes. They looked perfect. No redness, no swelling, no visible irritation. Just beauty, held together with glue and habit. If something was really wrong, she'd know, wouldn't she? She set the mirror down and closed her eyes. She had work in the morning. Another meeting with clients. Another day where no one would see the clutter behind her, or the laundry, or the smell in the apartment. Just the lashes. Just the illusion. But as she drifted off to sleep, her eye twitched again. This time, longer. She reached up and scratched without thinking. Something felt different. She told herself it was the weather. She told herself it was springtime. She told herself it was fine. But, just beneath that surface confidence, her body was already screaming something her brain refused to hear. Sam started noticing it on Monday. The crust. Just a little bit in the corner of her left eye when she woke up. More than usual, but nothing alarming. She wiped it away with the edge of her blanket, blinked twice, and moved on. She had overslept again. Her phone alarm had gone off 3 times before she finally dragged herself out of bed. No time for a proper face wash. She rinsed quickly, avoiding splashing water near her lashes. She'd been warned too many times that water could weaken the glue. And those lashes weren't cheap, not the good ones at least. Even though she paid a discount price, she considered them high-end enough to require caution. By the time she reached her office cubicle, her eyes were already dry. She blamed the air conditioning. The building had always been freezing, even in April. Her coworker Trish had a little space heater hidden under her desk. Sam wished she could crawl under there with her. At lunch, while nibbling on a sad salad from the downstairs cafe, Sam caught her reflection in the black screen of her phone. Her lashes still looked full, but there was a slight redness in the white of her left eye, barely noticeable. She blinked, leaned closer to check, but the angle was wrong. She opened her camera, switched it to selfie mode, and zoomed in. Yup, a little red, nothing major. Maybe she'd rubbed her eye in her sleep. She put her phone down and took another bite of lettuce. That afternoon, during a meeting, her eye twitched, a small, involuntary flutter that made her blink twice as fast. She tried to hide it, to keep her expression neutral, while her boss went on about quarterly projections. But the twitch came back 5 minutes later. Then again. When she got home that night, she didn't turn on the lights. She didn't have the energy. The apartment felt stuffy, like the air hadn't moved in days. A faint smell of old takeout lingered in the corners. She kicked off her shoes, left her bag on the floor, and headed to the bathroom. The mirror above the sink was fogged with toothpaste smears and hair product residue. She leaned in close, squinting at her reflection under the dull yellow light. The left eye looked irritated, pink around the edges, a little watery. She gently pulled at the outer corner, revealing a red inner lid, and, was that a bump? She frowned. Maybe a sty? She remembered getting those as a kid. Her mom used to press a warm washcloth against her eye and hum something low and soft while they waited for it to drain. Sam hadn't done that in years. She didn't feel like dealing with it now. She popped 2 ibuprofen, wiped her face with a makeup remover cloth, and crawled into bed. The pillowcase still smelled like lavender and mascara. She scratched lightly at the corner of her eye again, then forced herself to stop. Just allergies. The next morning the crust was worse. It had spread along the lash line, yellowish and sticky. Her eye felt gummy. She rinsed her face again, blinking rapidly. When she tried to apply concealer, the area burned slightly. Her hand hesitated, then kept going. She couldn't afford to look tired. Not today. Not with that big client meeting at 10 a.m. She dabbed on more makeup than usual, layered mascara over the lashes carefully, avoiding the inner corner. At the office, no one said anything. But Trish glanced at her twice during the meeting, eyebrows raised. Afterward, Sam stopped by the restroom and looked in the mirror. Her eye was definitely redder now. She splashed water on her face and leaned in close. It was getting harder to ignore. After work, Sam stopped by the pharmacy on 6th and Denver. She didn't want to go to a doctor. Too dramatic, too official. But over-the-counter eye drops? That felt reasonable. Responsible, even. She stood in the aisle longer than expected, scanning rows of artificial tears, redness relievers, antihistamines, lubricating gels. There were so many. She picked one that said "Soothes Irritated Eyes" and had a photo of a serene-looking woman on the box. Her lashes looked good, too. At home, she washed her hands, sort of, and leaned into the bathroom mirror to apply the drops. The cool liquid stung for half a second, then settled. She blinked, waited. A slight relief, like a light mist on a hot day. Not healing, but numbing. Good enough. By Thursday, the drops weren't helping anymore. The crust came back stronger each morning. Her eyelid felt swollen when she woke up, tight, like someone had glued her lashes shut overnight. She had to peel them apart slowly with her fingertips. A faint yellow discharge clung to the outer corners, but still, no real pain, no panic, just gross and manageable. That night, Josh was supposed to come over. They'd only been seeing each other a few months, a few casual dinners, a movie night, some light texting. He was easy to talk to, non-judgmental, and, importantly, didn't ask too many personal questions. Sam liked that about him. He texted before arriving, "Still good to come by? Bring wine?" She glanced around her apartment and hesitated. The living room was cluttered. Not dirty exactly, but definitely not date night ready. The couch was buried under clothes. Half-eaten cereal bowls lined the coffee table. An old delivery box was still on the floor by the front door. She lit a candle and shoved everything she could into the hallway closet. Out of sight, out of mind. When Josh arrived, she opened the door with a smile. Hair pulled into a messy bun, oversized sweatshirt hanging just off one shoulder. Casual, cute, intentional chaos. "Hey," he said, holding up a bottle of red. "Hope this works." The guy at the liquor store said it was smooth and bold, like me. Sam laughed and waved him in. Perfect. Josh stepped inside, and immediately his expression changed. Subtle, but there, a flicker of something. Confusion, discomfort, she pretended not to notice. "Sorry about the mess," she said, brushing past him. "Long week." He glanced around as he followed her to the kitchen. The floor was sticky near the fridge. The trash can was overflowing. Something buzzed near the window. Maybe a fruit fly. He didn't say anything. Just opened the wine. They sat on the couch, shoulders touching. She tucked her feet under her and leaned into him. They talked about work, music, some dumb viral video he'd seen. But his eyes kept drifting, not to her, but to the room. At one point, he leaned forward to grab his glass and paused. There was a clump of hair and dust near the leg of the coffee table. Sam reached over quickly and nudged it out of sight with her foot. The silence after that was thicker than the wine. Eventually, he glanced at her and asked, "Hey, you feeling okay?" She stiffened. "Why?" "Your eye. It looks a little, I don't know, puffy." Sam pulled back slightly. "It's allergies. I already got drops, okay." Just looked kinda irritated. She smiled tightly. "Thanks for the concern, Dr. Josh." He chuckled, but it didn't reach his eyes. They watched a movie. Halfway through, she realized he hadn't touched her again. He was sitting upright, one arm resting on the armrest, not on her. When the credits rolled, he stood and stretched. "I should get going. Early morning." Sam nodded, walked him to the door. He leaned in to kiss her cheek. She turned, just a little too slow. His lips grazed her temple instead. "Night," he said. "Night." She closed the door behind him and didn't move for a long time. Later, lying in bed, she thought about the way he looked around her apartment, the way he hesitated to kiss her, the way he'd said nothing. But everything was there in his silence. Her eye itched again. She didn't reach for the drops this time. She just let it burn. Sam hadn't heard from Josh in 2 days. She told herself it wasn't a big deal. He was probably just busy. Guys flaked all the time. It didn't mean anything. But still, every time her phone buzzed, her heart jumped just a little. And every time it was just a junk email or a work notification, the disappointment landed harder than she wanted to admit. Her eye had gotten worse. She woke up on Friday morning with the same crusted corner, only now it pulled when she tried to open her eye. It took several slow blinks and a warm washcloth to separate the lashes. The skin beneath felt raw, irritated. She leaned into the bathroom mirror and noticed something new. A small red bump forming just above her lash line. The whole area looked inflamed, tender to the touch. Still, she pressed on her concealer and carefully curled the lashes that remained. She didn't want to look sick. That was the last thing she needed. People asking questions, noticing the cracks. At work, she kept her head down. Trish asked her twice if she was okay. She brushed it off. "Just allergies," she said with a forced smile. "Spring's brutal this year, but the discomfort was growing harder to hide. That afternoon, Josh texted, "Hey, can I swing by later? Left my charger at your place." Sam stared at the message for a long moment. She typed, deleted, retyped. Then finally, "Sure." Doors open. She had less than an hour. She moved through the apartment like a whirlwind. Well, as much of a whirlwind as her energy allowed. She stuffed dirty clothes into the bedroom, lit a candle in the living room, wiped down the counters with a damp paper towel. The smell of bleach and citrus filled the air, masking the more permanent staleness that clung to the walls. When Josh arrived, he didn't knock. He let himself in quietly, and Sam was sitting on the couch, pretending to scroll through her phone like she hadn't been waiting. "Hey," she said, glancing up. "Hey," he replied, heading straight for the coffee table where his charger lay tangled under a notebook. He picked it up, wound the cord absently, and hesitated. "How's your eye?" She shrugged. "Still red." He nodded. "Looks kinda worse, honestly." She shifted uncomfortably. "I've been using drops, they're just not working." He didn't sit down, just stood there, awkwardly twisting the cord in his hands. His gaze traveled again, not just to her, but around her. The candle flickered on the table, casting soft shadows against the clutter that hadn't been fully cleared. The silence stretched. "You okay?" she asked finally. He looked at her, really looked, and in that moment, something shifted. It wasn't disgust. Not exactly. It was distance. A soft pulling away. "I think I'm gonna head out," he said gently. "Didn't sleep much last night." Sam nodded too quickly. "Sure, of course." He paused at the door. "Take care of that eye, yeah?" She forced a smile. "Will do." And then he was gone. The apartment felt heavier after he left, the candles scent suddenly too sweet, too artificial. Sam stood in the center of the room, feeling the weight of every coffee ring on the table, every hair clinging to the floor, every dish she hadn't washed. She went to the mirror. Her eye was redder than before, swollen at the lid, a faint glistening at the corner like the beginning of something pus-filled. She leaned in, trying to examine it closely, but the light was too dim. The skin around her lashes was shiny and irritated, and when she blinked, the lashes tugged against the glue. She didn't cry, but something inside her cracked, quietly, almost imperceptibly. Not a break, not yet, just a splinter. The next morning, Sam woke up to something wet on her cheek. At first, she thought it was just drool, some small, embarrassing remnant of restless sleep. But when she sat up and reached for her phone, the mirror on her nightstand caught the edge of her reflection. Her left eye was swollen, not puffy, not pink, swollen. The eyelid was thick, discolored, red merging into purplish at the edges. There was a yellowish crust glued along the lash line, and where it had cracked during the night, a slick, sticky fluid had dripped down the side of her face. It had soaked into the pillow, leaving a dark stain shaped like a half moon. She stared at herself for a full minute, unmoving. Then, with mechanical detachment, she rose, shuffled into the bathroom, and turned on the light. Her reflection didn't look like her. The lashes that had once fanned out so perfectly now jutted at odd angles, some clumped together with crust, others missing entirely. A few sat limply on her cheek like broken feathers. She reached up with trembling fingers and tried to wipe away the gunk, but the skin was so tender it stung with the lightest touch. Her eye throbbed with a deep, internal pulse. Panic stirred beneath her ribs. But instead of giving in to it, she did what she always did. She covered it up. She ran hot water over a towel, pressed it to her eye for a few seconds, then dried it carefully. She applied concealer around the swelling, dabbed on foundation, and avoided the lash line entirely. She skipped mascara. Too risky. She tugged her hair over the left side of her face and threw on a pair of oversized sunglasses. To anyone passing by, she might have looked hungover, or maybe just tired, but to Sam, it was camouflage. At work, no one said anything, at least not to her face, but she could feel the eyes, whispered glances from across cubicles. Quick looks that shifted when she turned her head. At lunch, Trish sat beside her and said nothing for almost 10 minutes. Then gently, "You should really see someone." Sam didn't answer. That night, in bed, she finally Googled it. Swollen eyelid-crusting lashes falling out. The results were a blur of medical jargon, close-up images, and terrifying headlines. Blepharitis, sty, conjunctivitis, and then 3 lines down, Demodex mites infestation. She clicked, skimmed, clicked away. Tiny organisms that live in hair follicles, common, often harmless unless allowed to overpopulate, linked to poor hygiene, eyelash extensions, unclean bedding. She slammed her phone face down. That wasn't it. That was gross. That was not what this was. She wasn't dirty. Just a little behind on chores. Just busy. Besides, she'd used drops. She'd cleaned the eye. She wasn't like those people. But when she went to wash her face, 3 more lashes came off on the towel. She stared at them, dark and curled, lying lifeless in the white fabric like burnt matchsticks. For the first time, her hands began to shake. It wasn't just her eye anymore. It was her image, her control. Something was breaking loose beneath the surface. She was losing more than lashes. She was losing herself. The receptionist at the clinic barely looked up when Sam approached the counter, just slid a clipboard across the Formica surface, and mumbled, "Fill these out, ID and insurance." Sam nodded, lowering her sunglasses. Her left eye was now visibly swollen, more than yesterday, puffy, red, angry-looking. She tried to hide it with makeup again, but even her best concealer couldn't mask the shine of irritation or the droop in her lid. A line of lashes had fallen out completely, leaving a small bald gap that made her eye look lopsided. She filled out the forms quickly, hands tight with tension. She could feel people in the waiting room glancing at her, doing that polite American thing of not staring but still noticing. A child across from her leaned toward his mom and whispered something. The mom shushed him and offered Sam a sympathetic smile. She looked away. When they finally called her name, Samantha Grady, her heart thudded louder than her footsteps. The hallway to the exam room felt endless. Every fluorescent light buzzed above her like a tiny judgment. The nurse asked the usual questions: pain scale, duration of symptoms, allergies, last time she'd worn contacts. Sam answered numbly. No, she didn't wear contacts. No new skincare. Yes, she'd used OTC drops. No, they didn't help. Dr. Nguyen entered the room with a warm, neutral expression, the kind that said she'd seen it all and wasn't about to be shocked. She wore sensible clogs and a short white coat. Her voice was calm, efficient. "Let's take a look." Sam sat stiffly as the doctor pulled on gloves and gently tilted her chin upward. She flinched when the light hit her eye. "Sorry," Dr. Nguyen said quietly. "Bit sensitive, I know." She examined the lid, the lash line, the underside. Her brow furrowed slightly. Not alarmed, but clearly thinking. "Looks like blepharitis," she said. "Inflammation of the eyelid. Pretty common. Could be caused by clogged glands, bacterial imbalance, even reaction to lash glue, especially if it wasn't medical grade." Sam nodded quickly. That made sense. Reaction to glue. She'd known it. Something about Tina's place had felt off last time. "Can you fix it?" she asked, voice low. "We'll start with a lid scrub routine, some warm compresses, and a short course of antibiotic drops," the doctor said, writing notes as she spoke. "If it's bacterial, this should clear it. I'll also prescribe an ointment to apply at night." Sam swallowed. "Will the lashes grow back?" Dr. Nguyen looked up. "They usually do. But you'll want to avoid extensions for a while, and keep the area clean, very clean." Sam nodded again, trying to absorb the instructions, trying not to crumble under the sense of failure pressing against her chest. The doctor handed her a printed care sheet and her prescriptions. "If it doesn't improve in a week," she said, "come back. We may want to take a closer look." A week. Sam clutched the papers in her hand and offered a tight smile. "Thanks, doctor." Back in the car, she let her head fall back against the headrest. The engine hummed, but the air inside the cabin felt stale. The sunlight caught her reflection in the rearview mirror, and for the first time, she didn't flinch at what she saw. She just stared. There was no illusion left. The lashes were broken. Her left eye looked bruised and tired. There were dry flakes at the corner, and still, a faint itch. She drove home in silence, her fingers tightening around the steering wheel every time the urge to rub her eye crept in. When she reached the apartment, she went straight to the bathroom and followed the instructions. Warm compress, medicated ointment, no touching. The drops stung more than expected. The ointment made her vision blurry. But it was supposed to get better now. It had to. Still, as she lay in bed that night, eye slick with medication, lashes clumped and sparse, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was still wrong, like a noise just beneath the silence. A crawling she couldn't name. 3 days passed. The drops didn't help. The ointment blurred her vision but dulled nothing. The warm compresses offered temporary relief, but the swelling never went down. If anything, it got worse. By Tuesday, Sam could barely open her left eye. The lid had ballooned, puffy and red like a blister about to burst. It throbbed with every heartbeat. The crust hardened into layers she had to peel away with warm water just to see in the morning. Lashes continued to fall, sometimes in pairs, sometimes in small clumps, leaving behind tiny, irritated follicles that wept clear fluid. And now, something new had appeared, tiny red bumps. Not just on the eyelid, but along the lash line, almost like a rash. Pinpricks, angry, symmetrical, and multiplying. She hadn't gone to work in 2 days. She told her boss it was conjunctivitis, highly contagious, better to stay home. He'd agreed too quickly. On the third morning she couldn't take it anymore. The eye had swollen to the size of a ping-pong ball, not figuratively, literally. It bulged from her face like something foreign, like it didn't belong to her. Her vision was a blur of red and pressure. Even the weight of the air hurt. She called the clinic and begged for a same-day appointment. Dr. Nguyen raised her eyebrows the moment she walked into the room. "Oh my," she said under her breath. "That's a significant progression." Sam couldn't even speak. She just nodded, heart racing. She felt half human, half hideous. The room was too bright, the walls too white. The doctor leaned in, her expression tighter now. She used a different scope this time, one that allowed her to look deeper, closer. She pulled on her gloves and gently probed the lash line. Sam winced. "Still tender?" "Very." The doctor paused, then said quietly, "We're going to take a sample." "A sample?" "Just a few lashes. I'd like to examine them under the microscope. Something doesn't look typical here." Sam felt her stomach twist. "You think it's something serious?" "I'm not sure. Let's take a closer look." Dr. Nguyen used a sterile tweezer and plucked 3 lashes from the reddest part of the lid. Sam flinched. A tiny dot of blood surfaced where one lash had been pulled. The doctor placed them on a slide and excused herself, heading to the lab just down the hall. Sam sat there alone, hands gripping the edge of the table. She wanted to cry, but the swelling made even blinking painful. When Dr. Nguyen returned, her expression was different, less clinical, more disturbed. She sat down slowly. "Sam," she began gently, "I believe we found the cause." Sam swallowed. "What is it?" "Demodex, a type of mite that lives in hair follicles, especially around the eyes. Most people have a few. It's not uncommon. But in your case," she paused, "there's a severe overpopulation. I saw multiple mites, cylindrical, translucent bodies, moving around the lash root, actively. Some were feeding, some appeared to be burrowed into the follicle itself. That's likely what's causing the inflammation and those small red bumps." Sam stared at her. Her lips parted, but no words came out. "Mites?" she finally whispered. Dr. Nguyen nodded. "They're microscopic, invisible to the naked eye. But when hygiene is poor, or if eyelash extensions are applied in unsanitary conditions, they can thrive, reproduce rapidly, cause intense irritation, hair loss, even secondary infections." Sam felt bile rise in her throat. "So they're living on me? In the follicles?" "Yes." She gripped the sides of the chair. "Are they on both eyes?" "I only tested one. But given the severity, it's likely." The room tilted slightly. Or maybe it was just her balance giving way. The doctor continued, her voice calm. "We're going to start a new treatment. Prescription-strength tea tree oil scrubs, oral ivermectin, topical metronidazole. No makeup, no lashes, no shared towels or pillows." Sam nodded numbly. "You'll need to disinfect bedding daily, wash everything in hot water, replace pillowcases every night, and no touching the eyes no matter how itchy it gets." Her voice faded into the background. Sam could still see it, those tiny worm-like things crawling around the base of her lashes, feeding, laying eggs, thriving in the warm, oily skin she'd neglected for years. She imagined them writhing with every blink. She imagined them watching her. Her voice cracked when she finally asked, "Will they go away?" "With treatment, yes," the doctor said gently. "But it's going to take time, and consistency." Sam sat there, frozen. She didn't remember walking to the car, didn't remember driving home, only the bathroom mirror, the moment she looked again and saw not just herself, but something else behind her eyes. Something alive. The first night of treatment was worse than anything Sam had imagined. She'd read the instructions twice. She watched 3 YouTube videos about Demodex mites, each more horrifying than the last. Still, nothing truly prepared her for what it would feel like to sit in front of her bathroom mirror and scrub her own eyelids with medicated foam, knowing exactly what she was trying to kill. He used a clean cotton pad soaked in the tea tree cleanser and gently pressed it against her lash line. The sting was instant. It wasn't sharp, it was deep seeping, as if the mites themselves were reacting, burrowing deeper, writhing under her skin. Her hands trembled. He scrubbed both eyes as instructed, even though the right eye looked relatively normal. It didn't matter. They were likely everywhere. She finished. She rinsed with warm water, applied the antibiotic cream, and finally, hesitantly, looked up at her reflection. He barely recognized herself. Her lashes were almost all gone now. The ones that remained were short, stubby, pointing in different directions like broken wires. Her eyelids were red and slightly swollen, framed by flaking skin. She looked unfinished, raw, like someone in the middle of transformation, but not into something beautiful, into something real. She didn't leave the house the next day, or the day after that. The treatment required complete commitment. Twice daily scrubs, hot compresses, no makeup, no eye rubbing. She changed her pillowcase every night, boiled her towels after every use, wiped down her phone, doorknobs, and light switches with disinfectant. The effort was exhausting. The apartment began to smell like a hospital. She unplugged from social media, avoided mirrors, avoided herself. When Trish texted to check in, Sam didn't reply. When her mom called, she let it ring. On the third night, she sat on the floor of her bedroom, surrounded by laundry she couldn't fold and dishes she couldn't bring herself to wash. Her eye was still red, still tender, but the swelling had gone down just a little, a small victory, a tiny corner of hope. She stared at the blank TV screen in the dark and whispered to no one, "I didn't know it would get this bad." The truth was, she hadn't wanted to know. She'd chosen easy, chosen pretty, chosen illusion over maintenance, the idea that beauty could be fast, effortless, external, glue and lashes and filters, a look she could apply and remove like armor. But now, there was no armor, just skin, just infection, just her. She tried to distract herself by cleaning, stripped her bed, bleached the bathroom counter, scrubbed the ring around the tub. She found 3 old lash extension appointment cards tucked into a drawer. She threw them away. She also found a photo from 3 months ago, a selfie at the office holiday party. Her lashes were full, her makeup perfect. Josh was standing beside her, smiling. She studied the image. Her eyes were bright, confident, powerful, and yet, those were the same eyes that had housed the parasites. How could something so ugly live in something made to be admired? She folded the photo in half and set it aside. That night, as she lay down in bed with a clean pillowcase and freshly scrubbed lids, she didn't cry. She was too tired. But before she closed her eyes, she whispered one word to the ceiling, sorry. She wasn't sure who she was apologizing to, herself, her body, her younger self, but it felt necessary, and somehow honest. On the 5th day of treatment, Sam's phone rang. She almost didn't answer. She hadn't answered anyone in days, but this time, something in her chest tugged, a tired thread of guilt. Mom, calling. She picked up. Hi, she whispered. There was a pause on the other end. Then Linda's voice, soft, careful. Samantha? Sam pressed the phone tighter to her ear. I've been worried, her mother said. You've gone completely silent. Are you okay? No, Sam said, her voice cracking like thin glass. I'm not. It was the first time she'd said it out loud. Another pause. I'm coming over, Linda said, not waiting for permission. Sam didn't argue. When her mother arrived 2 hours later, she knocked, then opened the door with her spare key, the one Sam always forgot she still had. The apartment smelled faintly of bleach and tea tree oil. The lights were dim, dishes were stacked by the sink, the couch was bare of cushions, washed and drying on the line. The coffee table was wiped clean, but the air still felt heavy. Linda stepped inside slowly, her purse tight in her hand. Sam, I'm in here, Sam called from the bedroom. Linda rounded the corner and froze in the doorway. Her daughter was sitting cross-legged on the bed, wrapped in a robe, hair unwashed and tied into a lopsided bun. Her face was bare, the skin around her eyes raw and pink, no lashes, no mascara, no armor. Sam didn't look away this time. Linda brought a hand to her mouth. "Oh, baby. Don't," Sam said, her voice flat. "Please don't say anything." Linda crossed the room and sat beside her. Slowly, carefully, like she might break something. After a long silence, she said, "Why didn't you call me sooner? I didn't want you to see me like this. I'm your mother." "I know," Sam whispered. "That's why." Linda sighed and looked down at her lap. "I should have come earlier. I knew something was wrong. I didn't want to push." Sam gave a bitter smile. "You've never pushed." Linda didn't argue. For a while, the only sound was the quiet hum of the heater. Then Sam spoke, her voice soft and trembling. "I think I let this happen because I never learned how to take care of anything. Not really. Not myself, not my space, not my body." "That's not true," Linda said gently. Sam shook her head. "It is. You always did everything for me. You cleaned my room. You made my lunch. You didn't even make me fold my own laundry. You said you wanted to make my life easier. And it did. But maybe too easy." Linda's eyes welled up. "I just wanted you to feel safe, loved." "I know," Sam said. "But I never learned what real responsibility felt like, what it means to actually be clean, to take care of something, consistently. I thought if I looked good, that was enough." She paused. "And now there are bugs in my face, Mom. Tiny, microscopic bugs. Because I didn't wash my eyelids for years." Linda reached out and took her hand. "That's not who you are." Sam looked up, eyes shining. "Then who am I?" Linda didn't have an answer. She just squeezed her daughter's hand and held on. They sat like that for a long time. Mother and daughter, silence and shame and something else forming between them. Maybe understanding, maybe the beginning of something real. The mirror no longer frightened her, not because she looked better. She didn't, not yet, but because the fear had lost its grip. What was left wasn't shame. It was something quieter, something almost peaceful. Acceptance. Sam stood in the bathroom, holding a clean towel in one hand and a bottle of tea tree cleanser in the other. Her skin was still pink along the eyelids, the lashes barely beginning to regrow, short, thin, uneven. But her eyes were clearer now, less inflamed, and for the first time in weeks, they didn't itch. She scrubbed gently, then rinsed with warm water, pat dry, no tugging, no rushing. Each step had become a kind of ritual, a small act of self-respect, not vanity, not performance, just care. Afterward, she made her bed, properly, sheets tucked, corners squared. She opened the window to let in the cold December air. The breeze carried the scent of frost and a faint echo of the city. Buses, dogs barking, someone yelling at a delivery driver down the block. It felt real. In the kitchen, she made coffee, not from a pod this time, but with the little French press she'd gotten as a gift and never used. She watched the grounds bloom in the hot water, the steam curling upward like breath. She didn't check her phone. She hadn't in days. Social media could wait. The scrolling, the comparisons, the curated faces, it all felt irrelevant now. She deleted the apps from her home screen, left only texts and email, a small act, but a powerful one. Instead, she grabbed a trash bag and walked to the living room. The old Lash appointment cards? Gone. The expired beauty products in her vanity drawer? Gone. A dried-out mascara wand she hadn't touched in months, the crumpled wrappers from fast food, the stack of unopened mail, all gone. She vacuumed the floors, wiped the baseboards, opened every window in the apartment. For once, the air felt breathable. Not perfect, not sterile, but human, lived in, honest. She cleaned not because someone might visit, but because she lived there. Because she deserved to walk barefoot without stepping on a sock or a pizza crust. Because this was hers. Later that afternoon, she showered and dressed in soft cotton. No makeup. No concealer. Just moisturizer and a little lip balm. Her skin still bore the marks of everything she'd been through, but she didn't need to hide it anymore. The doorbell rang. It was Trish. Sam blinked in surprise. "You didn't text. I figured if I gave you a heads up, you'd find a reason to say no," Trish said, holding up a bag of takeout. "Ty?" Sam stepped aside. "God, yes." They sat on the freshly wiped couch, cartons spread out between them. Trish didn't say anything about Sam's face or the apartment. She just handed her a fork and opened a soda. Halfway through the meal, Sam looked at her and said quietly, "I had mites." Trish froze, fork in midair. Literal parasites, living in my eyelashes, hundreds of them. Maybe more. Trish blinked. That's Horrifying, yep. Are they gone? Mostly, I think. Still treating. Still cleaning. Trish sipped her soda. Well, you're still you. Sam looked down at her lap. I don't think I was before. Trish didn't press. She just leaned back against the couch, eyes on the ceiling. You know, you were always the most polished person in the room, like put together in a way that made the rest of us feel like trolls. Sam laughed softly. You never looked like a troll. I mean, not next to you. You always had the lashes, the nails, the hair, like you stepped out of a magazine. I think I was trying to. Trish turned to her. But the girl I see right now, she's not in a magazine, she's just here. And honestly, she seems a hell of a lot more grounded. Sam didn't answer, but something softened in her chest. A week later, Sam returned to the clinic. This time she didn't wear sunglasses. She didn't try to cover anything up. Her lashes were still sparse but no longer inflamed. The redness had faded into a soft pink. The bumps along the lash line were gone. The skin looked healthier, calmer, healing. Dr. Nguyen smiled when she entered the room. Look at you, she said, adjusting her scope. Much better. Sam offered a shy smile. Feels better, too. The doctor leaned in, examined her lids carefully. No active mites. No inflammation. I'd say the treatment worked. Sam exhaled slowly. She hadn't realized she'd been holding her breath. Keep up the hygiene routine, Dr. Nguyen added. You don't need to obsess, but consistency is everything. I've learned, Sam said. The hard way. The doctor straightened. Most of us do. Sam left the clinic with no prescriptions, no follow-ups, just a simple note in her patient file. Resolved. Outside, the wind bit at her face. Winter had arrived in full. Gray skies, bare trees, holiday lights flickering on porches. Sam zipped up her coat and walked a few blocks before getting on the bus. No headphones, no distractions, just the quiet rhythm of the city and the sound of her own breathing. When she got home, she sat at her desk and opened her laptop. For a long time she stared at the blank screen. Then, slowly, she began to type. I used to think beauty was control, that if I looked perfect, I could keep the rest of the world at arm's length. That lashes, nails, and curated outfits could protect me from ever being seen too closely. But then something small, microscopic, forced me to look deeper. What started as a little itch turned into a full-blown infestation. Demodex mites, hundreds of them living in my lashes, thriving in the silence of my denial. I was too embarrassed to tell anyone, too proud to ask for help. I lost my lashes. I lost my confidence. I lost my illusion of perfection. But I found something else. I found discipline. I found humility. I found what it feels like to clean not just your skin, but your space, your habits, your thoughts. I'm not writing this for sympathy. I'm writing this in case you, yes, you, are in the middle of ignoring something small, something you're brushing off, something that feels embarrassing, but might just be your body begging to be heard. Clean doesn't mean flawless. And messy doesn't mean broken. But pretending? That's where the real damage grows. She stared at the words. Let them settle. Then she hit post. She didn't expect a viral response. She didn't need one. The act of saying it out loud, of telling the truth, was its own kind of medicine. That night, she stood in front of her bathroom mirror again. No mascara, no glue. Just Sam. The lashes were returning, thin little things that barely cast a shadow, but the eyes behind them, they looked stronger. She reached up, touched the corner of her left lid gently and whispered, "Thank you." Not to the lashes, to herself, to her body for enduring, to her mind, for finally listening, to the girl who once thought a thick lash line could keep the world from getting too close, and to the woman who had learned that letting people see you, really see you, was far braver. The mirror didn't scare her anymore, but she did have one question left. One she typed under her post, just before bed. What are you hiding behind your lashes? Sometimes, the things that humble us the most are the things we can't even see. A tiny parasite, a swollen eye, a silence we've lived with for far too long. But in that discomfort, there's also a mirror that asks, when was the last time you truly took care of yourself? Not just to look good, but to be well. Because healing doesn't always start with medicine. Sometimes it starts with honesty, with finally looking at the things we've been avoiding. So as the lashes fell, something else began to grow. Clarity, boundaries, self-worth, and maybe that's the kind of beauty no one can fake. If you've ever hidden behind makeup, a smile, or a routine that no longer serves you, you're not alone. Tell us below, what part of yourself are you finally ready to face? Drop a comment. Let's talk, let's be real. And if this story moved you, even just a little, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need this reminder too. There's more to come, more stories, more truth, and more healing.